okay?
I feel so good.
What's wrong?
I feel kind of dizzy.
Deb?
Hello, Dexter. Remember me?
Hi, Dexter. Remember me? What an ending. I'm sitting here with Jace Richdale,
Hello.
the writer of this episode, A Little Reflection, who gave us that ending. Hi, Dexter. Remember me? I'm trying to be Hannah to you. It's uncomfortable staring at you when I say that in that voice.
Well, I didn't really give us that ending. It happened to be at the end of this script that I wrote, but you know, as
you gave us that ending. That was a good ending. Super cliffhanger. It was great. Yes. I think the answer to that question is everybody screaming at the television saying, yes, we remember Hannah McKay. You brought Hannah McKay back.
Well,
everybody's been waiting.
If you want, I'll be happy to take credit for that. I mean, I love.
It was part of the story.
Yeah.
The
I
overarching
love the
story.
character. I was thrilled that, you know, we got her back.
Yeah.
I think the fans will be. I mean, you know,
because that was even sort of a struggle because there's I mean, just in the business of television, of making television, to bring somebody in at that level for a 4-second scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's cost expenditure that doesn't make sense, but storytelling makes complete sense.
Right. I mean, I know we actually at one point talked about trying to have her come show up in the next episode, but it just didn't feel right. It felt like she needed to come at the end of the episode, like, you know, with this, as you said, this big cliffhanger.
I concur. Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this episode a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
That's what you're here for.
That's all I know. Is this episode. It's my life.
Dexter and Zach. At the top of this episode, it feels sort of refreshingly to me like a good old fashioned Dexter episode.
Yeah.
He's on a stalk, hunt, kill. He's got his target. He's going to take him out. This guy deserves it. He fits the code. Everything is perfect. You know, with what was it, the pictures?
Oh, the pictures, yeah. I mean, I think the idea was that, you know, Dexter's been going through this kind of one of his many dark nights of the soul. But you know, from the end of last season, after the killing of LaGuardia and his sort of schism with Deb, you know, he found that he's been lost without Deb, and that at the end of episode 5, they've kind of had this rapprochement and.
Ooh, French, I love it.
Well, yeah, thanks. So they're in a better place, and I think Dexter feels at the top of 6 like, okay, here's a guy in this Zach character who seems to really deserve the code,
right? And
he wants to get back to you know, familiar ground, and
do what feels good.
Yeah, do what feels good and feels comfortable and feels like the Dexter that he's always known. And I think, you know, what he finds out is no going back, really. You know, that whatever changes he's been through have changed that Dexter doesn't exist anymore, and that world that he lived in doesn't quite exist anymore.
Which is, because there's a lot of that threading through this episode, even with Zach and Cassie.
Yes.
You know?
Definitely. He tries to, you know, Jamie sort of pressures him to go out on a date with Cassie, and I think, you know, he felt he had a run-in with her sort of in the last episode, right? And thought
she's easy on the eyes.
She's attractive, and he sort of owes her. She sort of let him out of that. He had to, you know, get out of that date, and she let him do that very graciously. And she did it,
but she also did it and covered for him, which made him suddenly think, "Wow,
she's cool.
She's cool," and sort of fits the perfect sort of beard thing again. Another Rita, so to speak. Yeah.
Right, and I think he thinks, you know, why not? I'll go out on a date with her. And maybe I can sort of go back to that world of having a sort of beard girlfriend, and then when he is with her, he realizes that he can't. And I think that it's sort of priming the appearance of Hannah at the end of the episode, because now that he's had real love with Hannah, he realizes he can't. You know, he's tasted something that he can't go back to the the version. He
can't live a
real
fake life with someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's lived this real life.
He's changed. That Dexter that could live that life doesn't really exist anymore, and that's what he's finding out, I think, in this episode.
Poor Cassie. She kind of likes him.
Yeah, she seems to.
Although
I don't know why. I mean, the date is like, you know, it's clearly not a great first date.
I think she has the same problems that Deb has, maybe.
Yeah.
The unreachable men are
Yeah.
more attractive to her than
Yeah, I think that must be true.
the easygoing ones like what's his name? Oliver Saxon.
Oliver Saxon, right,
Yeah.
right.
So let's Dexter and Zach. Let's talk about this relationship that's happening because
Right.
at the very top it feels very familiar. Like I said, it feels like here we go, a good old fashioned stalk and kill. But his whole world is thrown on end when he finds out that Zach and Vogel.
Right.
Yeah.
He follows Zach when he's stalking him and to Vogel's and finds out that he's now a patient of hers and confronts her. And he's just gotten through 5 episodes, of trying to help her find out who this killer was that was stalking her, and
Right.
finally thinks that they've gotten rid of this killer. And now he finds that she's gotten right back into the same thing with, she's treating another killer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
somebody that he's pretty sure is a murderer. And so that's upsetting to him. And then she presents this as sort of a conflict of interest. Like, look, this is my patient now, and I'd appreciate it if you don't kill him.
She's got morals.
Yeah, she's got morals, and he's also, it's a paycheck for her. But in any event, so I think for this presents a little kind of rocky impasse for Dexter with Vogel for the first time since they've met, really.
Yeah.
And he's annoyed with her, and he decides he's just going to go ahead and pursue this guy anyway.
Because she doesn't know any better.
Right.
He's thinking, just like with Yates and all that stuff that went on before.
Right.
She can't think clearly when it comes to her patients.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, she doesn't know what she's getting herself into, and he's going to take care of her as he does all the women in his life, or at least he thinks that he does. So.
And he follows him around, finds out that Quinn is that's always, to me, that's another fun part about Dexter that felt fun and familiar, that the cops are going after the same people.
Right. Yeah, and
know.
Quinn's interesting. Their relationship's interesting not only because of what's happened between them in the past,
Yeah.
That Quinn sort of on some level probably knows that Dexter is a killer.
Because he took care of RoboCop.
Right.
Yeah.
And in some ways, Quinn seems like, to me, sort of
And
like...
took care of Quinn, by the way, too. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Covered for him.
So exactly. So Quinn sort of knows on one hand that he's probably a killer, but on the other hand, he did Quinn a solid, and got him out of some serious trouble.
But killer, but it's also like, we got to be careful about that, because it's not like he knows he's a serial killer. He knows
No,
he
exactly.
understands that, Quinn understands that he stuck this guy on him.
Right.
And sort of caused all
And then
these
suddenly-
problems to happen. Suddenly disappears.
Right.
Yeah.
And, so I think he thinks he's probably responsible for Liddy's death. But I think that the main thing is, I think he knows Dexter is not what he appears to be to everyone else. So, and in some ways, I kind of think of Quinn as Dexter's alter ego. I mean, they sort of, Quinn is not the brightest bulb, but he kind of gets the job done.
Yeah.
And
he's good police.
Yeah, he's good police. And they've always sort of had this kind of slightly antagonistic relationship. And then there was the Deb aspect to it. But I think it's interesting that in this episode 6, they have they kind of end up working together a little bit, and at least on the surface, as far as Quinn's concerned, he thinks that Dexter kind of just wants to help him out, and they have a chat in a car when they're sort of staking out Zach, and it's just interesting to see them. They're talking about Deb, and they're talking about Quinn says to him something like, he's just gotten passed over for promotion to sergeant by Batista, and he thinks that it was because he has kind of some shady, things in his past, and he refers to him as we've all got. He says to Dexter, and when he says it to Dexter, he says, "You know what I mean," because he knows Dexter has, and I don't think anybody else really thinks that, but Quinn knows that.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting conversation from that standpoint.
Yeah, and still, Dexter's using Quinn.
Exactly. Ultimately,
Poor Quinn.
Ultimately, Quinn is being used by Dexter as usual.
Because Quinn's dating his nanny, Jamie.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
so ultimately, when he's hunting down Zach and trying to take this guy out, he understands that Quinn is there.
Right.
So I thought that was a very fun moment when he calls up Jamie. He
Yeah.
says, "Hey, I think Jamie's feeling bad. He needs your help."
Yeah, it's fun to see him do something that's kind of psychologically manipulative and not just sort of operational.
Yeah.
He's usually breaking into people's places and doing things that show his kind of serial killer smarts. But this is sort of his insight into human nature, and that Quinn let something slip in the conversation in the car, which is that he's worried that Jamie may be disappointed in him, that he didn't get this promotion to sergeant, and says something like, "Oh, she'll probably dump me," and so Dexter has that tucked away, and then at this right moment, he's able to use that to send Quinn off to get rid of him when he wants to stalk Zach.
Quinn's like, "All right, thanks, buddy."
Yeah,
so
exactly.
funny.
Yeah.
So what is it? So that frees up Dexter to go take out Zach.
Right.
And Zach really is on a mission to kill somebody.
Yes. Yeah.
But of course, the twist being
the ultimate twist is that he really wants to kill his father.
Right.
And that it's because his father is this serial cheater, and I think he's obviously been very neglectful of both Zach and his mother. But his mother, we find out, is we don't dwell on it a lot, but we sort of find out that she's sort of drinking herself to death because of the father's behavior,
and there's nothing she can do about it.
Right. Yeah. And so Zach holds his father responsible, and decides that he's, that if he gets rid of his father, he'll be getting rid of the problem, and that maybe his mother will, get better.
Yeah.
So Dexter, I think that's a key thing for Dexter, seeing that he's been killing. Zach has only done, as far as we know, one kill, which is this.
Right, the maid that his father was sleeping with.
Right,
yeah.
And now he's planning to kill his father. So both of them are motivated really to protect his mother, and I think that's something that Dexter can relate to, and he sees that there's something beneath this sort of serial killer or budding serial killer facade that sort of suggests that he's maybe a little bit like Dexter.
Yeah,
and
which is what Dr. Vogel's been saying all along.
Right,
Yeah.
which is what Dr. Vogel sort of insinuates in the first scene she has with Dexter, without really saying it, that she's seeing something special in this kid, and then maybe allowing Dexter, maybe knowing on some level that Dexter's going to stalk him, maybe thinking he'll find out for himself, because ultimately she presents Dexter with the idea of teaching that Zach may be a candidate for learning the code.
Yeah.
And of course, Dexter thinks this is absurd. I mean, no one, he considers himself to be unique.
And anytime he's done that, it hasn't worked out that well. Oscar Prado.
Right.
Not Oscar. What am I saying? Not Oscar.
What's his name?
Miguel.
Miguel Prado.
Yeah. Jimmy Smits. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people.
Lumen.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it definitely has.
He's got a bad track record.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think he thinks it's ridiculous, and he thinks this kid that she doesn't know what she's talking about, and then finds out when he has him on the kill table what his true motivations are, and decides to let him live because of that. And then it's actually implied that he's thinking of maybe he will teach him the code, and it's sort of we'll see what happens after that in the next episode. But it's something he's considering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting journey for him.
Yeah.
Deborah and Elway have an interesting relationship. I mean, there's like a theme running through all of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's Deborah's also she's come through this terrible ordeal of trying to deal with the guilt of killing LaGuardia, and kind of going down this rabbit hole of into this darkness and
destruction, just destroying herself basically.
And she's kind of coming out of that now a little bit, and she's able to recognize that Elway, who's kind of this, although he's a private detective and he probably has his dark side too, and she does find out a little bit about some of his issues in this episode, but I think he represents sort of a cleaner cut kind of guy, a guy that on paper at least is somebody she probably should be attracted to. And then in this episode, she decides to help him with what turns out to be a personal problem, a case that involves his sister, and
which is a good turnabout, because Elway's been letting her do all of her personal stuff,
right,
and doing all this stuff that has nothing to do, with Nikki, whatever, all this stuff, and finally he gets to use her, and work together with her, which is something I think he's been wanting.
Right, because what we're sort of sensing all along. I mean, he's made it fairly clear that he's attracted to Deb, and then in working with her, we sort of set up this sting where Deborah has to come on to a guy that Elway suspects is cheating on his sister, his sister's boyfriend, and he gets jealous when he sees Deb flirting with this guy, which he has to do in the course of
And she's
her
good
job.
at it. She's good at working undercover.
Right.
Yeah.
It
doesn't feel self-destructive either when she's doing it, like it was previously.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it's definitely not that. I mean, she's
sort of
just
being a cop.
Yeah. I mean, she started out working Vice originally,
Yeah.
and had to do the same sort of things. And she's good at it. She knows how to do it, and she's attractive. And so, but Elway gets upset and kind of makes a big scene and punches the guy, and it becomes it's obviously about his sister, but it's obviously about. I mean, it's about more too. It's about Deb, and she sees that in that moment. And
What is it about Deb that makes everybody want to protect her? It's funny, isn't it? Like,
yeah, because I know
from Lundy and on paper she seems, and
doesn't-
even physically she seems like someone that can take care of herself.
Right. She doesn't come across as somebody I wouldn't think who needed protection. In fact,
Yeah.
I would think the opposite. But
She could protect us.
yeah, I'd rather her protect me. I think but yeah, that's an interesting observation. People do seem to kind of think that.
'Cause Dexter does. To a
Right.
certain extent, she sort of puts that out to Dexter.
She
I
does.
think.
She shows
Yeah.
Dexter a side that she doesn't really show other people, and he is. I mean, she is his sister, but other people do. Yeah, seem to
Yeah.
want to do that. Quinn kind of wants to do that. and-
Absolutely. Lundy
so
did.
there must be some
yeah.
vulnerability that obviously they're perceiving.
Yeah. Once you get to know Deborah.
Yeah, well, she is wounded. I mean, she's
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, you could look at it as that sort of rough exterior, that false bravado is just a it's a wall she puts up, and
Yeah.
beneath that she
Because
is
of
kind
Harry and because of
Yeah.
what she didn't receive from him.
Right.
And even just the weirdness of growing up with a psychopath serial killer brother.
right.
Which is weird, I imagine.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I have no personal experience with that I know of. Anyway,
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Knock, knock.
Yeah.
Yes, and that was very fun to watch her work undercover and watch him step in and slug the girl.
Yeah.
Or slug the guy and
Yeah.
sort of kind of profess that he likes her.
Right, and as you said, I think Dexter on his date with Cassie sort of realizes that he can't settle for anything less than what he had with Hannah,
Yeah.
and Deb sort of realizes that something's not right, that she's either not ready for a relationship with Elway, or for some reason he's just not the right guy. But I mean,
Yeah.
they're both sort of realizing that they can't just kind of step into these sort of
Patterns that they lived in
easy
when they were-
lives,
Yeah. Or what they used to do.
Right.
Basically, yeah. They have to
Right.
find new solutions to live in this new world that they're living in. Yeah.
Right. That the old habits just aren't going to do anymore. That it's uncharted territory they're in, and
Yeah.
they're going to have to find their way.
And it'll be interesting to find out how it all happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
So thank you so much, Jace Richdale, for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.
You crack me up.
Well, thanks.
In case people don't know, you are the guy from The Simpsons. You
I
did
am
The
one
Simpsons
of
for
many
one
guys from
one
The
of many.
Simpsons, but yeah,
But
I was there.
we always
I
look
did my
forward
time.
to when you do Mr. Smithers. Is that?
Smithers.
Yeah. Periodically, secrets of the room. Periodically, characters will suddenly segue into Mr. Smithers' voice.
Yeah, it's an interesting mashup of Dexter and The Simpsons, two things that don't you wouldn't think would go together too
But
well.
it keeps-
But in the room, they can go together just fine.
Yeah. No, but it's sort of when we're creating story, we need that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
You know,
well-
if you're driving on plot all day long, driving on character all day
Right.
long, you get very tired. And periodically, we need a good fart joke.
Yes, although we didn't do
Yeah.
a lot of those in The Simpsons, but but yeah, I mean, I find that obviously in a comedy rewrite room, it's all jokes all the time,
Yeah.
and actually that can get kind of tiresome. But when you're in a drama rewrite room, can be relentlessly on story, and it is fun to, at least for me, it's to sort of let the air out of it.
Yeah.
Which you do too.
Yeah.
You're also
no,
very
I think
funny.
I think it's very important. It is sort of.
You got to laugh, otherwise
Yeah.
it just it's too, and especially when you're doing a show about what could be considered a fairly depressing subject. I mean, somebody who goes out and kills people and has lots and lots of very dark issues. And
It's true. Like every morning I wake up, I get in my Google alerts, I have serial killer. So
oh my God,
I'm reading article after article
Yeah.
every day about all these horrible things.
right?
And luckily, we get to come in here and we talk about it, and then horrible things and funny things happen.
Right.
It's important.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
good time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun for me too. we won't go into the significance of that particular noise.
But
It's
very
not
significant.
just your ordinary fart. It has to do with the character on the show. But we won't delve into that any
That's
deeper.
some secrets have to be kept.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Jace Richdale.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Bye bye.
Hey, so we're sitting here with John Dahl. How you doing, man? Director extraordinaire.
Very good, thanks.
Yeah. The director of episode 806, A Little Reflection. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a damn fine, good job you did.
Well, thank you.
Little truth about me. This is very exciting for me. I've always been a big fan of the John Dahl sort of mystery noirish movies that you've done. I remember a time when I was working in I was in college. Mm-hmm. I was working in a group home.
Right.
And every Thursday to Friday night I'd work a midnight shift. So I would, all the guys would just go to sleep. So I just had to sort of stand guard, I guess. So I'd rent a bunch of movies. And there's a night that I rented Last Seduction and Red Rock West, and which you've done both of those.
Right.
Yeah. And I watched them both and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing.
They're perfect movies to watch late night by yourself.
They are so stinking good. And
That's how I got those ideas.
Linda Fiorentino,
Yeah.
what she does, what you did with her on that, oh my gosh. And I remember sitting there going, I want to do this when I grow up.
How old were
One
you?
day, I was in college. Still, this is many years away from the growing up part. But cut to, like, working on Dexter, and suddenly in walks John Dahl. It's very
Right.
exciting for me.
Right.
Yeah, you formed a lot of my taste in movies, and
Oh, well, awesome.
so thank you for that.
Well, this has been a lot of fun because Dexter's kind of a perfect blend of crime,
Yeah.
fiction, and sort of a wicked sense of humor that's can be a bit dark.
Yeah.
And then there's Michael C. Hall. So it all it sort of suits my sensibilities really well. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's been great. All right, enough of that noise.
All right.
Let's talk about you a little bit. Mm-hmm. How'd you become this director guy? How'd this all work out? Because you're from
Montana.
Montana. Are there a lot of directors from Montana?
I think so. Yeah, there's a big list. But no, I liked movies. I
Yeah.
liked music. I liked drawing. Played in rock bands in high school, and went to college and played in rock bands, and was an art major.
Oh, wow.
And then I realized, how am I going to make a living doing this stuff? I worked as a commercial artist for a while and thought, that's, and
What's
then
that mean? What's a commercial artist mean?
I designed billboards.
Okay.
And it was great fun, but it was sort of solitary, and I guess I wanted more chaos in my life. So playing in bands wasn't enough, and I realized I wasn't that good at that. So when all else fails, go to film school. So I went to film school in Bozeman,
The big city of Bozeman.
the big city of Bozeman, Montana, and I was originally interested in camera, and as luck would have it, so was everybody else in my class of, I think there was 7 people. So with everybody kind of wanting to do and liking camera, we were trying to figure out how to do stories, and I realized, well, I've always drawn cartoons, and so I realized, well, if you can draw cartoons, maybe you can tell a story. It's sort of the same thing. So the fun of telling stories with cartoons and drawings sort of rolled into directing. So I figured if I can draw these stories, then I can eventually figure out how to tell stories. And then I started writing and just kind of got into it, and then eventually realized directing was a lot of fun. So you could kind of do a lot of things and not be that good at anything. So, and here I am.
But you had a very specific style in your first, 3, 4, almost, through rounders even probably, huh?
Yeah, well, that's from an art background. It's very important to me how things look, and that's how I kind of got sucked into filmmaking, is I sort of fell in love with the way things looked. So the visuals are always really important to me. But at the same time, I realized that the reason people go to see movies is to watch the stories and fall in love with the characters and the storyline, and really, literally nobody walks out of a movie theater and says, wow, I love the way that looked, and then goes out and buys another ticket or has their friends go see it. And there's a couple of movies that I've seen that are just absolutely stunning, but you couldn't watch more than 30 minutes of it and be engaged in the story. It's just not that interesting.
I have friends who feel that way about Kubrick.
Kubrick they're gorgeous to watch, and it took me a long time to figure out. In fact, that's what was like. Clockwork Orange was really the movie that got me completely fascinated with filmmaking, because I realized all that stuff had to be made and put on the sets. I loved the artwork and the style, and it was just like this combination of violence and Beethoven playing while they're kicking the crap out of somebody in slow motion, and then it was like a punk band, which
Yeah.
it was
You sort of
great.
sided with him. He's a little Dextery because he had a voiceover that was running all the way through.
Exactly, and it was. Everything I love about movies is in that movie, and it took me a long time to realize that I could not make movies like Kubrick. I mean, I love his films,
Yeah, me
but
too.
in a way, The Killing is like one of my favorites, and it's just a good noir movie.
Yeah,
And you don't think about and so, then there was another.
Because you love Sterling Hayden in that movie. You
Oh, it's
completely
fantastic.
side with him the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy who I love he plays the
The guy
captain.
that shoots the
captain in Dexter. He's the modern day
Jeff Pearson.
He's
Yeah.
the modern day Sterling Hayden.
You know what? You're totally right.
I'm always
Oh.
saying, "Hey Jeff, you're just like you're Sterling Hayden." And anyway,
If he went, it'd be totally him. That's what I do.
yeah, he's fantastic, and I love he's just this great sort of hard-ass character in the show. But anyway, as I've gotten to make more and more stories on film, my part of my goal is to just be sort of invisible and have the characters really sort of come across as this driving force.
Is that tougher on TV? Because TV, you sort of have to mimic what's gone on before too.
Not so much.
No?
I think mostly if you're telling the story, and I think in a strange way, I had this. They had the good fortune of doing was the season open for season 7,
Right.
and that I just thought, well, let's just make kind of a real visual departure. So we did a lot more different things than we had done prior to that, and there was a new cinematographer, Jeff Jur, and so
New
and
cameras,
a new
everything,
camera,
yeah.
and so I thought, well, this is an opportunity to sort of depart from, the sort of traditional look of Dexter, and we did more, unusual things, and it sort of carried a little bit through.
Did the night stuff, especially the night stuff is
Yeah,
like
my stuff looks great.
it's like Bava-like.
Yeah.
It's all the colors of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I realized, now it's been I've kind of come full circle. Now I realize every now and then it's just fun to make a really cool shot and don't worry about it, because the thing about television is that the audience is, you could do almost anything with a show. The people tune in each week to watch Michael C. Hall play Dexter and Jennifer Carpenter to play, Deborah.
Yeah.
And you just love being. If you like the show, you love those characters. You'll watch them do pretty much anything. And that's the great. You're in the 8th season of of a great show. And
8th and final.
Yeah, people love this cast and doing what they do.
Yeah. So let's talk about this episode a little bit.
Sure.
Because when I was watching it, and knowing I was going to be talking to you, I was maybe a little bit more cognizant of what was going on than normal. How do you know when to do? There's moments that sometimes are in the script and sometimes they're not. You use slow motion a bit in that episode, like at the beginning when Dexter is sitting in his car and he's looking across and he sees Zach and you see the crime scene, or not a crime, it was like a hit and run or whatever.
Right.
Blood on the ground. How do you make those sort of decisions ahead of time? Because there's two very different sort of scenes in Dexter, right? There are the Dexter moments where you are inside his head. So there's a weird sort of point of view thing that happens every once in a while.
Right.
And the way you look at Dexter sometimes is down low and looking up at him or whatever.
Right.
But then other scenes with Masuka and Dora, Batista and Jeff Pearson, Matthews.
Right.
They seem different than the Dexter scenes.
Right.
Are those things you think through, or?
Yeah, because that's the complete charm of Dexter for me, anyway. Is Michael C. Hall. The audience, over the years, you've established this relationship with this character, and Michael Hall can literally stand in front of a camera and raise an eyebrow, and the audience goes, "I know what he's thinking," because you're so tied into him, you're so tapped into him, and so
Even without the voiceover.
exactly,
Yeah.
and you've got this wealth of backstory, and you know so much about him, and you as a viewer have this great vantage point that you know Dexter like nobody else does, because he shares that with you, and nobody else, very literally nobody inside the show has as much knowledge about Dexter as you do. So you're really participating with him in a way. So when he makes those expressions on his face, you know exactly what he's thinking, and of course, you have a super talented guy doing it. So I mean, that makes it really fun. The use of slow motion is when you kind of want to just change it up a little bit and start really inside his head and really, it's kind of,
It feels experiential, sort of. I guess.
So there's sometimes it's more dramatic that way, and it's just kind of getting a bit more of a feel for it. And this is the beginning of the episode. You've been away for a week. You're getting back into the show, and what's Dexter doing now? And so the whole idea was to try to make it as dreamy and sort of bizarre as possible. We shot it during the day.
Yeah.
So trying to find a way to sort of give we had mirrors flashing around on the set. We had smoke everywhere we could, and we had wind machines, and we just wanted to kind of create this sort of Dexter point of view as he's beginning to look at this guy and stalk him.
For the record, that's a struggle we have in the show all the time. We're always like, let's start at night, or let's have a crime scene at night. Let's do it. And then promptly Gary Law walks in the room and says, we can't do this, and let me tell you why.
Right. Well, and of course at night, at night it would have been beautiful because you would have wet down everything and everything would be shiny and glistening. And knowing that I've got to shoot it in the morning, we kind of came up with all these other things that we could do. Yeah. And slow motion, obviously helped with that.
Yeah.
But it just, it's like it's one of those moments where sometimes it's making it visually work right, and then other times it's just you want to be tapped in with Dexter, and you can never shoot enough close-ups.
Right. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of times, there's moments where we don't even see other people talking. You're looking at Dexter.
I always, whenever I do anything else, I always have to ask people, what's a close-up? Because this is a close-up in Dexter, and I'm putting my hand in the middle of my forehead and just under my chin, which is normally an extreme screamer close-up on anything else. Yeah. But in Dexter, that's a close-up.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those weird shows where, and it uses the close-up incredibly effectively because you know Dexter so well.
Yeah.
So you just as a fan of the show, I love to go into this show and follow Michael around and be right with him. And it's one of those weird shows where everything works so internally. It's great to see people's faces huge.
Yeah, especially his. You're right.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, then, when you're shooting scenes with voiceover,
right?
How do you handle that on the set?
Well, fortunately, there's this system that's been worked out between Scott Peterson, the script supervisor, and Michael C. Hall, the actor, where they'll go through them and they'll time them out. And then you kind of like work them out with the other cast. And Michael's great at explaining, I'm thinking now while you're standing. It's like, some of it's been great to hear Michael explain the show to guest stars, kind of how it works. One of my favorite moments was he was explaining a kill scene to, I think it was the policewoman. I can't remember what episode. And it was in her pink bedroom. She says, see, I needle you, and then you kind of knocks you out. And what a great YouTube moment. But and he's standing there in his full, kill outfit, and he's sort of, this is how it works, and I do this and I do that, and then and this, anyway, so much of the way the show works is because Michael has, made it, so functioning in front of the camera. So a lot of how those voiceover scenes work is largely, again, Michael Hall and. Scott and him kind of time it out and then working it out a little bit with the other actors and realizing, this is one of those cinematic moments. Don't worry that you're not sort of doing anything or saying anything right now. We'll be like on a big close-up of Michael, and he'll be thinking, and then the scene will continue. But it is all the regular cast know how it works.
Yeah.
But when somebody new, they don't even think about it.
Yeah. It's just like
when somebody new comes in, we have to kind of, Michael gives them the lowdown. So.
Which brings us to you sort of give us the first real introduction of Zach this episode.
Right.
The Brit.
Right.
It's very funny.
Who knew? But he's terrific,
Yeah. I heard was he speaking American the whole time?
He was, you really had to kind of think and listen because he was pretty much in character and spoke very little English. With an English accent,
Brit.
Of course. But Brit accent. But he was. You would never guess that he was a Brit.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. Did you have to think about how to shoot him? Like these moments between he and Dexter? Was anything different about those scenes than? Well, I think he's sort of creepy.
Yeah, and
he doesn't play it creepy.
And that's what one of the notes that Scott Buck gave me ahead of time is make sure that he's kind of creepy.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, and Scott really wanted him to be sort of a little. Which is not hard to do. Make people creepy, especially on this show. So, a lot of that's with the actor, but just giving, just a little hint of, something here or there. You know, he was terrific. He really, you know, kind of took to it really well.
How do you handle actors on set?
I find that if you know, generally in television, that the actor has been cast because they've done something that, you know, the producer writers like.
Right.
So when the actor comes into the set and says, well, I can do this, I can do it that way, I can do it this way, I said, no, you know what? Whatever it was that you did, do that. You know, stay within those, you know,
Right.
trust your instincts. I mean, really, television really is a writer-actor's medium. You know, it's you know, there's such a fast process.
Yeah.
And really so with a lot of actors, it's just sort of, you know, I encourage them to trust their instincts and, you know, make the scene real for themselves, particularly with the main cast. They pretty much know these characters inside and out. So it really, for me, it's about, you know, trying to get the scene, you know, to have all the dramatic bits that are needed. Make sure that I have all the, you know, that the story's well told, and that you're getting just sort of an honesty out of the scene as it's written, so that the actor finds sort of a truth in it, and that they feel believable, and it works for them. And so a lot of times it's blocking. A lot of times it's making sure that they feel really comfortable with the part that they're playing.
Yeah.
Because everything happens so fast. You know that
You walk in and it's like Dexter and Deb in a room and they talk.
Right.
And then you guys have to figure out how's that all work.
Right.
In case people don't know.
Right, and it has taken me years to figure out that the less I say to actors, the better.
Oh, really?
And they always say, well, how was that? I said, it was good. Because, you know, if it's the thing, and you find with a lot of actors, they want some dialogue with a director, but not too much.
Right.
They just want to kind of come in and, especially Michael, he's in his own little world. Just leave him there, let him do his thing, and then talk to him about it afterwards. I don't want to dissect the whole scene with them because they're sort of in the moment, and it's about getting that performance.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to an actor, generally it's because there's something wrong with the scene, you know, and then I'll just if I don't feel like something's working, I'll start asking them questions.
Huh.
You know, well, let's see, why are you, and I sound like a complete moron. Well, so now why are you here, and why did you come in the room?
Right.
Because I'm going to get this thing from that.
They find the answers themselves.
And then they find, you know, and then I just find that a much more a better approach, because
It's very organic, it sounds like.
because I think also creative people want to find solutions, and they want to find the answers on their own.
Yeah.
And so if I just, you know, so really it's just about asking them the right questions. If I can ask them the right questions, then they'll kind of discover it themselves. And
It's
then,
like you're a director therapist. Yeah. We're going to work through this together.
yeah. So I really try to kind of keep it very of impact with the actors.
So what do you do when you get a script?
What do I do when I get a script?
Yeah, so you get a script, hopefully, you know, the first day of prep.
Yeah. Well, you know, I go through the script, and if there's something that seems off to me, I'll say, "Gee, Scott, what do you think of this?"
I know you've done that to us. Yeah.
Does this seem? How does this work? Does this make sense here? Is that what you're looking for here? And what are you trying to? So, and then if you guys have a good answer for it, you know, my goal is to try to make what you guys are looking for.
Right on. We follow Zach. Dexter follows Zach. He's trying to prove that this guy is creepy. You get two crime scenes basically.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very exciting.
I think probably my favorite scene is the almost kill scene. You know.
At the end.
Yes.
Yes, when he finally meets.
Yeah, because
kill scenes are fun, right? I mean,
I kind of feel like I've done so many kill scenes over the years. This is probably one of my, you know, close to the top. It just had all those elements of Dexter in it, right? Michael was fantastic as always. Right. He's got his kill suit on. He's got a victim on the table. The table, I was so thrilled that it was a photographic table.
That's right, because you had that light
coming up from it. So it's a great sort
beautiful.
of monster lighting, and then we've got the plastic, and then you know, we've got great performances and knives, and just I feel like I finally kind of figured out how to shoot, you know, a kill scene, and that one is, you know, so I feel like of all the kill scenes that I've shot, that's probably one of my.
How do you shoot a kill scene?
Just photographically, well, first of all, you have.
Because they do look different. They do.
Yeah.
Everything about them is different than...
You know, and what's interesting, too, is like I walked into there, and they had the the plastic all over the place. And so I was thinking to myself, how's the audience going to even know where the hell we are?
Yeah.
Because it just all of a sudden looks, you've got this beautiful room that looks now like it's draped in plastic, and you can't tell where you are.
It's something that sort of happened over the course of seasons that Dexter became apparently more and more and more meticulous about his plastic. Because if you
Right.
watched like season 1 and you're inside that cistern where the
Very little plastic.
yeah, it was just
Yeah.
like the table basically. Of course, it's like a dirt floor.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's 3 dead children on the floor. So I guess at that point you're like, eh.
Oh, I remember,
it's a bit of a mess.
Remember, didn't he have? There was early on. He had like plastic wrapped around his head.
Yes, one of
which
his
is really
first kills.
freaky. Yeah, that was great.
It's terrifying.
But I remember when I was doing this. I was doing a kill scene where it was like underneath the bleachers of a stadium, and again it was fun because we had him on an old scoreboard, so there was light
Right.
bulbs underneath this.
That was the
jock.
reunion one.
Yeah, the reunion one. So I was thinking, well, that's kind of visually that's pretty cool. So it was always nice to have good visuals in a kill scene. And then we had this kind of great set, and I said, wow, the set looks great. And then they wrapped it all in plastic, and I thought, we could have shot this anywhere. So I was really bummed out. So
Do you ever ask like, hey, a little less plastic?
well,
Have you
no,
felt
because
that-
there's the mythology of the
Right.
of the show. So I try to make a low impact on that. But so now we're getting ready to shoot this scene. The audience is going to have no idea where they are.
Right.
I feel it's important. I always want to at least know where I'm. I think establishing shots help. It's like, hey, we're in Baltimore and this is happening, and you just
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a lot, but just like sometimes you need to be grounded like that, and then other times you don't. But it seemed like to me it was important. So one of those questions I said to Michael, do you think you could, do you want to make an entrance into the scene? That was my question.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, sure, okay. So thinks of it. So that turns into Michael, the curtains are draped, and Michael there's this grand sort of almost like a vampire,
Yeah.
entering the room, and he sweeps the curtains away, and you can see that it's the photo lab behind him, and then he kind of scoots into the room and starts to walk around, sort of stalking around.
Yeah.
And usually what happens is, in those rehearsals, I just sort of stand where I think the camera's going to be or where I want the camera to be. And then the actor, and usually with kill scenes, we let Michael just pretty much go wherever. I mean, he works those out. He's done,
Yeah.
dozens of them. So, he's working it out and he's kind of feeling it out. And generally, we keep them very free form. They're typically handheld.
Yeah.
So-
Eric Fletcher, right? Isn't
Yes,
he run
and,
that?
and a big part of the show is obviously your two wonderful the great camera crew, but Eric Fletcher and Marty Layton,
Yeah.
A and B. And anyway, so usually Eric does the handheld and Steadicam, and he's just it's like
And he's a big guy. That's
a really
it's
big guy.
amazing that he's able to do it.
I mean, there was a scene where we did this a fight with Spitzer, and it was a fight
Oh, yeah,
inside
yeah.
a motorhome, and
Yes.
he could just barely, and we did it all handheld, and he could just barely fit through the hallways. It was like,
That was a good fight too.
it was a good fight,
Yeah,
yeah. And it was even better because we never had the same, the actors were never fighting each other. It would be an actor with a stunt guy.
Huh.
So
Can't even tell.
you can't, because we had really good doubles, and you don't have to run the risk of the actor getting hurt, because I know the stunt guy's not going to hurt Michael.
Yeah, yeah. And if they hurt a stunt guy, oh well.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. They get paid to get hurt. That's why.
I've seen Hooper.
That's right. Ice, ibuprofen, and vodka. That's what the stuntman does at night. Anyway, generally they're
Killers,
handheld.
yeah.
So Michael kind of comes in and he's working through the scene, and he's kind of working out in his mind how he wants to do it. And there's a couple of dramatic moments, like with the knife. Do I do this? Do I do that? He works it out, and as he's kind of going around, and he says, I think I'll just kind of be here, and then I'll come back over here, and we realize, what, we can do this all. And I think to this, other than that, I think it was at the end of, what was the scene where in the church where he killed
Colin Hanks.
Colin Hanks? Yes,
Yeah,
I think we
and
shot
six.
that. We shot that on a dolly, stationary camera, which I think was also one of the first times that we'd ever done that. So
He had a lot of room in that place too.
a lot of room, but it was very sort of theatrical and kind of grand, and it was the end of it was the end of
Yeah.
that season, and of course it's when Jennifer walks in,
Yeah.
and so we shot that with what gives it a little bit different feel to it. So when Michael kind of finished the blocking, I realized, you know what, I can shoot this on a dolly. I can keep the camera stationary, and and I've also kind of worked out where because it's always hard to shoot the victim because you're shooting down on them and up their nose, and it's always, you can never.
Because he's so stationary.
Exactly. So they're stationary, and Michael's moving around them. So we ended up, Marty landed in just sort of like the perfect place to get this great master, and then, again, a lot of people don't think about this, but a lot of it's the, the first assistants. Steve on with Marty and. Joel with Eric allows the actor to pretty much have Michael this exclusive freedom to kind of reign, to roam around. And
what's the first assistant do? Just so people know.
Pulls focus on the camera, which when you're using these really long lenses and a very low f-stop is extremely difficult. And I was telling Steve, you're kind of one of those 2-a-day guys. You're in that club. What's that? I said, you rarely ever lose focus more than twice a day.
Wow.
It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
And so is Joel. It's maybe once or twice a day they'll say, I got to do that again.
Wow.
And so over the years, Michael has had this, and Michael has a great relationship with both the guys, but it's knowing that these, that he has the range of freedom to do this performance, and that it's going to be captured pretty succinctly within a couple of takes.
Yeah.
It's a great freedom to have. So anyway, it makes for a really interesting dynamic. So it just feels, for me, it feels like on that scene, everything kind of collided.
Yeah.
Michael's fantastic. First of all, it's a good scene.
Yeah.
You have two really good actors. The design's right. The lighting's perfect. You have two really good camera operators, two really good focus pullers, two good dolly grips. So everything is just this little ballet of, and a boom. So you got all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's all human beings working in this like ballet of chaos.
Yeah.
And you're trying, and you're going to get a couple of. It's like catching lightning in a bottle. The fun part of filmmaking.
How do you know when you caught it?
Oh, you can feel it, right?
Yeah.
It's like Michael sort of zings something and just kind of go, oh, that was it.
Huh.
I hope it's in focus. And generally it is. No, I mean, it's been fun over the years. I mean, Michael is so good at it, but it's like with anything. It's particularly with comedy and with big drama, because you just know sometimes there's those moments that you get, and Michael is fantastic in those kill scenes, which I was thinking about that in season 7. Here's a guy who's been playing this killer, this twisted, demented, dysfunctional guy for 7 years. No wonder he's looking towards an end at some point. Just must be hard.
He said once it's like wearing a cloak, like this heavy cloak that he wears upon himself for 4 months of the year.
Yeah.
And then it ends and he's able to like take this thing off.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I think that year it's like I had a couple of opportunities to see Michael when he wasn't on the set, and he's just kind of a light, fun actor guy. It's like, I mean, he's a kind of a different person, but when he comes to the Dexter set, it's not like it's not like it's all doom and gloom. It's very funny most of the time, but it is a heavy thing to wear. I think we were shooting a scene where he killed Speltzer.
Yeah.
And we had a big flame thing, and we had a stake that had to get stuck into the guy's chest, and we had these buttons that had to work on the right time, and we were just kind of getting teed up, and there was it's like one of the few times where it was frustrating because there was so many cues that had to happen to make Speltzer's body go into the thing, and we're
Fire and everything, right?
right, and we got the special effects guy, and I'm saying what. The tray goes in when you push that button, and I've reviewed these things with him, and they're all visual cues. But there's the stunt guy, there's all these guys, all these things that have to happen, and Michael is fantastic on it, but he's really. It's like one of those scenes where he's really lathered up and physical. And it's like, and even at one point, I think Michael walked over and said, "The thing goes in when you push the button." It was like, it was. But it's so because
they're doing it again
and again from different angles, and that's the other thing that you really want to time out is, okay, let's do the wide shot. Let's not spend a lot of time on that. Let's do this shot next, and you try to pace each actor to the point where they're peaking when they're doing their close up.
Right.
On those scenes, generally try to get Michael's coverage first. The victim second. anybody that has more dialogue. But it's like really with Michael is really trying to just peak it, design the scene and get to a point where he's at his optimum in his close up. And he knows it too.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not.
It is funny. Like I remember the very first time I was
you've been there for those scenes, right?
Yeah. At first you're like, oh God, he's not delivering anything, and then you forget. Oh no, because he knows where the camera is.
yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Let's talk about Deb this episode.
Yes.
This was after season episode was it episode 4? Her brother, episode 5. They have somewhat of a rapprochement. No, they have a good one actually. Dexter decides family's worthwhile. So there was a lot of talk. Believe it or not, there's a lot of talk in the room about that steak and beer scene.
Right.
The pressure of that, because that used to be sort of small I for iconic, but iconic moment for them.
Right.
Steak and beer, and this is the first time the whole season, probably almost 2 seasons, that they've been able to do this.
Right.
And then you got to shoot steak.
Steak. Yes. And I remember shooting the close-up of the steak, and Michael's like, why are we shooting the close-up? It's iconic, Michael. It's the steak and knives. It's like, and then as soon as I said, it's like the opening scene, like titles, they're chopping up meat. He said, oh, okay.
Forgot,
I was like,
He fast forwards to that part now.
But it was really fun. They just sort of like moving in on that scene, and then like, you can tell you can tell Dexter's a bachelor because if he had a wife, she would have gotten rid of his desk years ago and put a kitchen table there. But they don't have one of those in that. It's like at the
coffee table.
Yeah. Yes. And so. Yeah.
We've done that even in the room. Sometimes we'll forget. We'll be like, all right, well, let's just have a little dinner thing over there. And be like, well, there's where? There's no table. There's nothing. There's a desk and a kitchen and a Smith and Wesson
chair.
Yeah.
Yes.
One.
Yeah.
It's not even 2.
Yeah. And so so there's they sort of eased into that and found it, and then also Amy comes in, right?
Yep.
And there's that little moment. But it was I don't know. I thought they were so natural and comfortable in that, and at the same time awkward.
It was
pretty great.
It was like people feeling each other's out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, is this? We want this to be the normal thing, and yet it just sort of doesn't quite work.
Right.
Sorry, and I love that little. I don't know if that was in the script or not, but when Jennifer looked at the steak and went, "Sorry, cow."
Oh, that's definitely Jennifer.
That's Jennifer. Yeah. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Made me laugh out loud. I was like, we should have called it that.
Yeah, I think I love Jennifer in. I thought she just was fantastic in season 7.
Yeah.
And just like this huge arc that she had to play, and then I thought, well, what are you going to do in season 8? And I just love the way it started and where she had gone as a character. I was able to watch several of the episodes. I think I watched maybe the first 4 episodes before we did this one. Yeah. So I had kind of a sense of where Jennifer was going with it.
She hit bottom.
Yeah. Right, and then kind of came back. And so it was that that weird moment in that scene where how do we repair this relationship that we've had? Yeah. So it was fun to see the two of them together. Like everything's supposed to be okay, but it's kind of not.
Yeah, and they're both aware of it, which is interesting. You know, like when she says, "I just wish there was a pill I could take to make this PTSD go away." Right. Yeah, it's very real. Yeah. And then you had that sort of fun, almost like a date thing going on with first of all with Dexter and Cassie, which was a very.
That's right, where they go to the trucks.
They go to the trucks, yes. Which is a very. It's funny. It's a very funny scene watching, and I think it's because of what you were saying earlier that we know Dexter, right? And there's no voiceover in it.
It's a nicely written It's a nicely written moment, and then it's really well executed by Michael. Where she says, "What? You got a boat? Yeah, I got a boat." She's
hoping for something. Let's talk about something exciting.
Yeah, she's looking for something that she can talk to this guy about. Yeah, what do you do with the boat? So, do you water ski? Nope. No. and Dexter's realizing he can't really have a relationship with a regular person, and what do you do with that? I just go out
and come back
and the audience is going, yeah, we know what he's doing, and it's just so it's so great. You're tied in totally with Dexter at that moment. You know exactly. You're with Michael, and he plays his just his expressions. You're so tied into it, and then there's this girl that's
and it's a little like it's a nice callback to Rita. Yes. But it's like a self-aware version this time. Whereas with Rita, it was just sort of awkward, but we're both awkward, and I'm going to keep working through this, but it's different now.
Yeah.
after Hannah.
And she's got that great line. I think we're going to need some alcohol.
Yeah. And then shooting you had that other sort of faux date stuff going on with Elway, Sean
right.
Patrick Flannery.
That's right.
And Deb. And you got to shoot Deb in a dress too.
That's right.
It's gonna be a hot skirt.
It's always, you know, I mean, you always forget, I mean, she's a stunning woman, but
Yeah.
she's so often at times in jeans and boots
Yeah.
that yeah, she's, you know, she looks great in the dress. I think there was another year where we did where she gets promoted to being the lieutenant.
Yeah.
And she tries to show up, she's trying to figure out, it's like, and
What's
she's
her
very
style?
good at that physical like kind of walking off the elevator in a dress and high heels and just feeling so awkward.
Yeah.
This was pretty great.
Can you talk about those scenes a little bit? Shooting that stuff with Elway, and because it's the story there was Elway needs Deb to
Right.
to the two of them have to sort of work undercover
Right.
to figure, because his sister is seeing someone that he does not approve of.
Right.
Sort of a
So they go to
scumbag.
the Miami hotel and they're kind of watching, and
Yeah.
it kind of devolves into more of a conversation about the two of them in a way. sort of
Yeah.
way. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
fun.
which is fun, and it's fun too that the protectiveness that he feels for Deborah, like he doesn't want her to do that, but then there's this also Deborah's sort of acting like a cop a little bit.
Right. And
like
she's sort
almost-
of enjoying being a cop again.
Yeah,
And I love when he gets punched out at the end,
yeah.
which is
He punches out that jerk.
Patrick was great at that.
Well, that guy's he's a real fighter.
Yeah,
In real
yeah.
life, he
Yeah, he lets him have it.
yeah, he's very excited.
Yeah.
He keeps going. When do I get to fight Michael?
Yeah. I'm gonna punch somebody. No, he was terrific. What a great casting there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Which brings us to the big. Let's talk about the big ending.
Big reveal.
Yeah, that had to be fun. Like, knowing that you're the guy that brings back Hannah.
It was.
It was a big fight in the room, by the way. It was one of these things where they were going to end it. They're going to end it just him falling asleep and not know that who it was.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was sort of like a budgetary concern, like to have Hannah walk in, Yvonne walk in for a shot.
Right.
Is that worth it?
Right.
And everyone in the room was like, it's worth it.
Right.
Kidding me? Spend the money.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic because,
We've been waiting.
yeah, you've been waiting. You know, so they're sitting there and they're having their orange juice and coffee and it's one of those. I remember it was interesting with Michael and Jennifer were trying to figure out how do you fall asleep on camera and not look completely ridiculous. And it was kind of great how they both realized that they started layering it in earlier in the performance to the point where. You know, Jennifer, I thought did it really well in terms of like kind of rubbing her eye, you know, her
Yeah.
forehead, and then
I don't feel so good.
I don't feel, you know, and then she's kind
And
of
the
drawn.
music is interesting too, because the music is like Deborah's theme.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a concerned sort of moment.
Yeah.
Oh my God, something's happening. It's like, oh no, is she sick?
Well, it's interesting too because you start the scene like, okay, is this like, there's just sort of, you know, a mundane moment with two people having.
Because it's right off of Dexter with a knife standing above Zach.
Right.
And then slicing him free.
Right.
And it's a hard cut to
to them just eating juice,
Yeah.
drinking juice, and
yeah.
and saying,
gin and juice.
Where's this going? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it starts to get a little creepy. You know, it starts to, you know, the tension starts to build, and so it's a nice payoff when she walks in, and I think we shot her walking in slow motion, and then the sound guys were, should we slow her voice down? I said no, just, you know, so you hear her voice,
Yeah.
at regular speed,
Yeah.
but she's really slowed down. I think that's the way it is in the cut.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Big-
And she's kind of like ethereal,
Yeah.
looking with all backlit and sunny.
And I like her performance is just sort of matter of fact. It's
Right.
not like she's twirling a mustache
Yeah.
or the bad guy in any way, shape, or form. She's
Yeah.
just, hey.
Yeah, it's a quiet little moment that is more there for the audience than
Yeah.
you know, making a big moment out of it for the cast.
I feel like everybody screamed in that moment. Maybe not everybody. Like, oh, you're good at that stuff.
Yeah.
So if John Dahl, director of A Little Reflection, written by Jace Richdale, what are the movies people should watch that you've done? Because I remember this is an odd thing. I remember I think it was for Red Rock West was the Nick Cage one, right?
Yes.
I remember it was right about the same time as the Coen brothers were sort of coming out of their shell a little bit. And I remember Ebert saying, I remember watching the Siskel and Ebert show or whatever, and he was talking about how this guy is the next Coen
Uh-huh.
with that sort of movie.
Right.
Very exciting. So, what was your first one? Just so people-
My first movie was Kill Me Again.
Kill Me Again with Val Kilmer.
Right.
Which
second one was Red Rock West with Nick Cage.
so you had like these two people right off the bat that were, epic actors.
Yep. And then Last Seduction was Linda Fiorentino.
Yeah.
And then
Who's just the heat.
yeah.
She is like every great femme fatale you've ever could want.
Yeah. Oh, I remember when I was talking. She said, I get to be the guy in the movie. she was.
Yeah, because the guy isn't.
It's Peter Berg. Yeah.
Yeah. He's sort of a little weak.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting with Peter because he kind of came into the room and explained the whole script to me and why he kind of had to be this, meek character, which a lot of guys just wanted to be sort of tough.
Yeah.
That's perfect. And then we were doing a scene where she's kind of abusing him a little bit, and he was bristling, and I think he even used an F, word, and I just thought I'm like, gosh, how do I get him out of this? And I said, you know what, Peter, in this movie, I think you just have to be Jimmy Stewart. And he went, okay, I got it. And then that was kind of it. And he just sort of adopted this sort of docile, I'm glad to have you here, Linda, which really worked for the film.
Yeah. He's a director now. Right?
Yeah. But and
shaky camera
doesn't surprise me. He's a very, very smart guy and a very smart actor.
So
I'd like to actually see him act a little more.
Yeah.
I like his movies, but I'd like to see him act. He's a really good actor.
He is. And then Last Seduction.
And then Rounders,
which was the big poker movie.
Right.
With
Matt Damon.
Yeah, you attract a lot of big character
Very
actors.
fortunate that way. Yeah. And then Joyride was Steve Zahn, Paul
which
Walker.
is an entire departure for you.
Yeah.
It's more on the horror side.
I was kind of what was interesting. Rounders was this relationship between these two guys, and then I actually had talked to Steve Zahn about playing the Ed Norton part.
Yeah.
And then when Steve Zahn was interested in doing Joyride, and it was two brothers. It was it's kind of like working. Oh, the things that I didn't feel like I got quite right in Rounders, I could kind of do in
That's fun.
In Joyride. And I liked the fact that they were brothers, and one of them was kind of a screw up, and one of them sort of our hero.
Yeah.
And Steve Zahn is like I think one of the most talented, funny guys I've ever met. Clearly. Anyway, he's great. And then.
Then you sort of segued into TV for a little bit here now, right?
Yeah, and then is that when I did? Maybe that's when I did the World War II movie, The Great Raid, and then which is completely different.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun.
It's just hard to do sort of these mystery noirish things nowadays.
It's it's very hard.
Yeah,
and then the last movie I did was You Kill Me, which was with Ben Kingsley and Téa Leoni.
Right. That was a funny one.
Yeah, and it was Téa actually asked me if I wanted to do. Californication, which is how I started doing. That's kind of how I got into doing television, and I guess Showtime liked me and recommended me to, Clyde, and that's how I ended up doing Dexter.
We were like, yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I was like, that John Dahl?
Yeah,
yeah, and here you are.
Yeah, and television. I mean, really, I was talking to my son, who's interested in film now. Television is. Film has changed so much.
Yeah.
If you really look at what was being made as a movie in the 90s is now being made as a television show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
you're right.
The greatest success that you can have in movies is to make a sequel. So if you have success in a movie, you got to make a sequel of it, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what television is. But it's 12 of them in a season, and I'm really, if you think about it, pioneering that with shows like Dexter and Weeds. Showtime really sort of pioneered these kinds of really amazing shows. And I remember Clyde was saying, Dexter's kind of like a novel.
It is. It's a page turner.
And we do 12 episodes a year.
Yep.
And I remember, because I don't, as a director of these episodes, you just get one here and there, and you have no kind of idea where it's going after that.
Yeah.
I think it was in season 4. I was talking to Clyde. I said, it's really pretty remarkable how these all kind of tie together thematically as they, near the end of the season.
Yeah.
And he looked at me like, are you probably like one of the stupidest people I've talked to today? Of course they do. We do that by design. It's like, oh, of course.
Dexter rides on theme.
Yes.
It is true.
And that was, and so there's that, you guys have consistently done that where there's a wonderful sort of overarching theme. We're all, when we're working on the cruise, trying to piece things together.
You hear the theme a little bit, I imagine, in the tone meeting.
A little bit, but I'm not that aware of it. And I remember talking to John Lithgow. He said, "This is weird for me. I don't know what's happening next." I said, "Yeah, neither do I." But
yeah, we sprung the boy on him.
Yeah, and I said, "But look at it this way. It's kind of like real life. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can plan and hope for the best, but we just have to live in this moment." And in a way, that's the other thing that's fun about doing these serialized shows. Look, if there's something big that's coming up, I usually get I try to set that up a little bit, but it is kind of fun not knowing necessarily. Like, I have no idea how the season ends. I don't want to
tell you.
No idea. I don't want to know. I want to watch it.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
Hey, man, thank you so much for coming in. If people want to follow you, do you have something? Are you like a Twitter person, or are you Facebook?
I'm not.
No.
No.
None of those things. They should just watch
have
your
a
movies.
Yeah, I guess I should do that, but no.
Nah,
I don't have a Twitter thing. It's like
You just be asking us questions.
I already have enough stuff going on, so I certainly don't need a Twitter page. Yeah.
Yes, thanks so much for coming in, John
Thank you.
Dahl.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, and we gotta get a big thanks to Rob Galuzzo, Rob G.
Thanks.
And you're at Icons Rob G.
Sure.
At Twitter.
I'm not with Mike today.
Oh no, Mike. He's gonna mutter in the background. And I'm Scott Reynolds. I'm one of the writer producers here on the show. You can find me at JScottAmy at Twitter, and that's it. But it's gonna happen again and again. It has to happen. Thanks for coming in.
Excellent. Thanks.